They called him a monster, a beast in human skin, a man born for war and chaos. His name was Jack Rayner, and even on Earth, people spoke his name with fear. He had been a soldier once, one of the best. He survived battles where everyone else died. He walked through fire, through blood, and never fell. Some said he could not die. Others said he was already dead inside. When the great wars on Earth finally ended, humanity hoped for peace. But peace had no place for Jack Rayner. The world looked at him and saw a reminder of everything ugly: pain, death, and destruction. The government called him unstable. The media called him a weapon gone wrong, and so the soldier who saved Earth was forced to disappear. Jack lived alone in the mountains, far from cities, far from noise, far from people. He liked it that way. The wind was quiet, the snow covered his scars, and no one called him monster out there. But one cold night the stars changed. Strange lights filled the sky. Not human, not natural. They moved in patterns and silence, and the whole world watched as something massive entered Earth's orbit. At first, people thought it was a meteor. Then the news showed the truth. Aliens had arrived. The Galactic Alliance, a council of powerful alien races, had discovered Earth. They came not as invaders, but as judges. To them, humanity was dangerous. Their history of wars and weapons made them look like wild animals. The aliens studied humans for months. They saw violence, greed, and fear. And then they saw Jack Rayner. Videos of him in battle, the way he fought, the way he killed, spread across the galaxy. To the Alliance, he was proof that humans were monsters. And so they decided, Earth must never join the stars. But not everyone agreed. Some humans believed they could change. They wanted peace with the aliens. They wanted a place among the stars. So when Jack Rayner refused to hide, they offered him as a trade. Give them the monster, the generals said. Show them we can control our kind. Jack laughed when they came for him. You want to give me away? To prove you're peaceful, he said. Fine, let's see how that goes. He didn't resist. He didn't fight. He let them chain him like a beast. The soldiers were terrified. Not because Jack was angry, but because he was calm. His eyes were cold, unreadable. As they led him toward the alien transport ship, one young officer asked, "Why are you doing this?" Jack looked up at the dark sky. Because, he said quietly, they'll need me soon. The ship that took him wasn't human. It was alive, metal that breathed, walls that moved, air that tasted strange. The aliens didn't talk much. They just watched him, whispering in their own tongue. He could feel their fear. They wore glowing armor, carried weapons that hummed with light, but their hands shook whenever they looked at him. To them, he wasn't a man. He was a myth. They called him the Earth Monster. As the ship left the atmosphere, Jack stared down at his planet, blue, fragile, and shrinking under him. He didn't know if he would ever see it again. But deep down he didn't care. The world had already left him behind long ago. The stars were silent. The journey was long. He sat alone in his cell, listening to the alien engines hum. Every sound reminded him of war, the low vibration of tanks, the cold metal smell of weapons. He thought of the faces he had lost, his team, his brother, his home. And then he thought of the words the world had used for him: monster, beast, killer. Maybe they were right, but still, a part of him refused to die. When the ship finally arrived at the galactic station, the crowd was already waiting. Dozens of alien races filled the hall. Reptilian, insectoid, metallic, glowing. They stood behind energy barriers, whispering, pointing. "That's the human?" one asked. "It looks small." "Small things are often the deadliest," another said. Jack kept his eyes forward. The guards pushed him down a long hall toward a crystal chamber. Inside stood a group of alien leaders, tall and elegant with eyes like burning stars. The leader spoke in a calm, echoing voice. "Jack Rayner of Earth, you are charged with crimes of violence against your own species and threats to interstellar peace. You are to be confined and studied." Jack tilted his head slightly. "Studied?" The leader nodded. "Yes, we will understand what makes humans so dangerous. Perhaps then we will know if your kind deserves mercy." Jack smiled. "Good luck with that." The guards pushed him toward his cell, but before the door closed, he turned his head toward the leader and said something that froze the entire room. "You think I'm your problem?" he said quietly. "But soon something far worse is coming. When it does, you'll remember this monster." The cell door slammed shut. The aliens ignored his words, but the cameras kept recording. Somewhere deep in the station's data systems, a silent alert began to flash, an unknown signal detected near the edge of the galaxy. No one noticed. No one but Jack Rayner. And as he sat in the darkness, a small smile crossed his face. He had seen war. He knew its smell, its silence, its heartbeat. And he knew this was only the beginning. The cell was made of light. Cold white beams formed invisible walls around Jack Rayner. If he moved too close, the air itself burned. He had been trapped for 7 days aboard the Galactic Alliance prison ship, a massive vessel drifting between stars. Its corridors hummed with strange energy. Every sound felt alive, like the ship itself was watching him. The guards were nothing like humans. Their skin shimmered with scales that shifted color when they breathed. Their eyes were wide and glowing, like deep oceans with no end. They didn't speak to him and only whispered about him. That's the human beast. He killed hundreds of his own kind. Why keep him alive? Jack ignored them. He sat still, calm, almost bored. He had seen fear before him, but never like this. Even behind their weapons, these aliens trembled. They didn't understand him. No one ever did, but one alien watched him differently. She didn't fear him. She studied him. She stood taller than most. Her armor carved from living crystal, glowing faintly under the dim lights. Her silver eyes were sharp, almost human. The guards bowed when she entered. The whispers filled the air. The Queen of Xylaris. Why would she come here? Jack looked up. Their eyes met through the light barrier. For a moment, the world went silent. She didn't blink. She didn't move. She simply stared at him, not as a monster, but as a mystery. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was calm, royal, and cold. Human, you were once a soldier, correct? Jack didn't answer. I have seen the recordings, she continued. Your battles, your victories, your cruelty, Jack smirked. You came all the way here to compliment me? The guards shifted nervously, expecting her to order his death, but she didn't. Instead, she took one slow step closer. Tell me something, Earth soldier, she said. When you destroyed your enemies, did it feel good? Jack leaned forward slightly, his face half lit by the glowing walls. I didn't enjoy it, he said quietly. But I didn't regret it either. For a brief moment, something flickered in her eyes. Curiosity, or respect, then she turned away. Lock this one deeper. I want him alive. The guards obeyed. The Queen walked out without another word. But as she left, Jack whispered, You'll come back. You're not done with me. The next few days passed in silence until the alarms began. Red lights flashed through the ship. The walls shook. Explosions thundered from below deck. The guards shouted in their alien tongue. Weapons fired, the floor trembled, and something heavy crashed into the hull. Jack stood up slowly. Here we go, he muttered, his light cell flickered. Then, with a loud crack, the barrier shattered. Smoke filled the corridor. He stepped out for the first time. Free. Bodies of alien guards lay scattered. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Somewhere in the distance, someone screamed. Jack moved through the chaos, silent as a shadow. He didn't know who was attacking, pirates, rebels, maybe worse, but he didn't care. He just wanted out. Then through the smoke he saw her, the Queen of Xylaris pinned under debris, blood shining on her armor. Her royal guards were dead. Her breathing was weak. For a moment Jack almost walked away. She was the reason he was locked up. The reason he was called a monster again, but he stopped. He turned back. Something in her eyes, fear, maybe humanity, made him stay. He lifted the heavy metal beam off her. She gasped in pain, surprised. You, she whispered. Why help me? Jack looked around, the corridor burning, air filling with smoke. Because no one helped me, he said simply. He pulled her arm over his shoulder and started moving. The ship's systems screamed warnings in alien symbols. They ran through collapsing halls, past broken glass and burning wires. Explosions followed them like angry thunder. Escape pods, the Queen said weakly. North sector. Hurry. Jack didn't understand the layout, but he followed the flickering lights. Every door they opened led to another disaster. One pod bay was gone, another sealed by fire. Finally, they reached the last one. A small pod, damaged but working. Jack threw the Queen inside and hit the launch. The pod ejected with a violent jolt. Through the window, the prison ship exploded, a burning flower of light in the cold, dark sky. The pod shook, spinning toward a nearby planet. a red, stormy world full of lightning and dust. The Queen tried to steady herself. "That's no safe planet. That's better than staying dead," Jack said, gripping the controls. They crashed through the planet's atmosphere, fire lighting the sky behind them. The pod hit hard and metal screaming, glass cracking, and finally stopped in the middle of a wasteland. Silence. The Queen was unconscious. Jack's arm was bleeding. The air smelled toxic. The sky was green, the ground black. Jack looked out the window and muttered, "Welcome to nowhere." He stepped outside, dragging her body to safety under a rock ledge. The wind burned his skin. The dust stung his eyes. He looked at her, the Queen, once proud and untouchable, now helpless beside him. He could leave. He could walk away and never look back, but instead he built a small fire with the pod's wreckage, checked her pulse, and waited. When she woke, her voice was weak, but full of disbelief. "You saved me?" Jack shrugged. "Maybe monsters can do that too." The Queen stared at him for a long time, her silver eyes reflecting the flames. For the first time, she didn't see a beast. She saw a man, but in the distance thunder roared, and strange shapes moved under the red clouds. Something else lived on this planet. And it had already seen them. The storm never stopped. Dark clouds moved like smoke across a blood-red sky. The ground cracked and hissed beneath every step, releasing steam that smelled like rust and death. Jack Rayner looked around carefully, holding the Queen close to his side. The crash had destroyed everything. The escape pod was a pile of burning metal and the air was filled with poisonous dust. The sensors on the pod blinked weakly before dying, showing a single message in red light. "Atmosphere toxic, life detected," Jack muttered under his breath. Figures. He tore a piece of metal from the wreck and used it as a weapon. Sharp, heavy, dangerous. He had fought with worse before. The Queen was still weak. Her silver armor was cracked, one side of her face bruised. But even injured, she tried to stand tall. Her pride wouldn't let her look helpless. "What planet is this?" Jack asked. She coughed, clutching her side. "It's not a planet. It's one of Xylaris's moons. Abandoned after the wars. We call it Tyraxis." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Sounds friendly." Her tone turned serious. "No one comes here. The air is poison. The ground hides old machines. And the things that live here aren't meant to live anywhere." Jack gave a half smile. "Then we're in the right place." They started walking through the wasteland. Every few minutes, a loud rumble shook the ground as if something massive was moving below the surface. The Queen's steps grew slower. "You need rest," Jack said. She tried to protest, but her knees buckled. Jack caught her before she fell. "Careful, Your Majesty," he said dryly. "Wouldn't want to lose the galaxy's favorite alien." She glared weakly. "You dare mock a queen?" He smirked. "I've mocked worse." They found shelter in the ruins of an old outpost, metal walls half buried in dust. Inside, the air was a little cleaner, but the silence was worse. Every sound echoed like a whisper from the dead. Jack started a small fire with broken wires and plasma from the pod's remains. The Queen watched him quietly. His movements were precise, calm, practiced. Finally, she spoke. "You could have left me there. You had your chance." Jack didn't look up. "I don't leave people behind." "Even enemies?" she asked. He glanced at her, eyes cold but honest. "Especially enemies." For the first time, the Queen didn't have a reply. Hours passed. The Queen's wounds healed slowly, her alien body tougher than human flesh. Jack sat by the fire, sharpening the metal shard in his hand, listening. The wind outside howled like a living thing, then he heard it, a sound, unfaint, distant, wrong, like claws scraping metal. He stood up instantly. "We're not alone." The Queen's eyes widened. "What do you hear?" Jack didn't answer. He just stepped toward the doorway, crouched low, and looked out. At first he saw nothing, just shadows moving in the fog. Then the ground shifted. Something was crawling out of the dust. Long limbs, metallic skin, glowing red eyes. It wasn't alive. It wasn't dead either. It was one of the ancient war machines, left from the battles that destroyed this moon. The Queen whispered, terrified. "That's impossible. Those were deactivated centuries ago." Jack stared at it, muscles tensed. "Looks like someone forgot to pull the plug." The creature let out a mechanical screech and charged. Jack didn't hesitate. He grabbed the shard and swung it across the creature's head, sparks flying. The thing staggered but didn't fall. Another one appeared from the mist. Then another. "Run!" Jack shouted. The Queen tried to fight, firing her small plasma weapon, Sarkai, but it barely slowed them down. Jack punched one machine hard enough to break its neck joint, but its claws still caught his arm, slicing deep. He gritted his teeth and pulled free. They ran through the storm, dodging between broken towers and burning wreckage. The machines chased them, fast, tireless, hungry for living energy. Finally, they reached a massive pit, a crater glowing faintly blue. Below, a network of lights pulsed like veins under the ground. The Queen gasped. This was a research base. They were building something here. Jack looked down. Still are. Suddenly, the machines stopped chasing. They froze at the crater's edge, watching. Their eyes flickered, then one by one they turned back into the fog, retreating like trained soldiers. Jack frowned. "That's not normal," the Queen's voice trembled. "They obey orders. But who's giving them?" They climbed down into the crater carefully. At the bottom was a large door, alien metal, still powered. Symbols glowed faintly on its surface. Jack brushed the dust off, reading what little he could. It wasn't a language he knew, but the warning sign was clear. A red circle around 3 words. Containment protocol active. The Queen touched the wall. This base wasn't abandoned. It was locked. From the inside. Jack stared at her. Locked for what? Before she could answer, the door opened on its own. Slow, heavy, breathing out cold mist. Inside, darkness waited, and from that darkness came a low, rumbling growl. Not mechanical, not human. Something alive was in there. Something that shouldn't be. Jack raised his weapon, eyes sharp, voice steady. "Whatever it is," he said. It just met the monster of Earth. The door opened with a hiss of cold air. Inside, the light flickered weakly, old, broken, dying. Jack Rayner stepped forward slowly, his weapon raised, every sense sharp. The Queen followed close behind, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The air smelled of dust, metal, and something else. Something wrong. Like blood that had never dried, they entered a long tunnel lined with alien machines, all humming with faint blue light. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping black liquid. Symbols glowed on the walls. Warnings, danger signs, and strange codes in languages even the Queen couldn't read. "What is this place?" Jack asked quietly. The Queen hesitated. Her voice was softer now, almost afraid. This was a Genesis facility, built before the Alliance existed. They used it to create weapons. Living ones, Jack frowned. "Living weapons?" "Yes," she whispered. "Creatures born from machines. Programs written into blood. They were designed to think, to evolve, to kill anything that breathes." Jack looked at her. "And you're telling me this was forgotten?" She looked away. Some secrets are buried for a reason. They moved deeper into the tunnels. The sound of their footsteps echoed endlessly. Every few meters they passed shattered glass tanks, each big enough to hold a human body. Inside the cracks, Jack saw something that made his stomach turn. Claw marks still fresh. "Whatever was here," he said quietly. "It's not gone." The Queen didn't answer. Her face was pale, her silver eyes full of fear she didn't want to show. As they turned a corner, a dim light appeared. A control room. Jack kicked the door open. Inside, dozens of old screens flickered, showing static and strange alien code. The Queen brushed her fingers over a dusty console, and the system came to life with a hum. A hologram appeared, a log entry in her people's language. She translated aloud. "Experiment 47B. Subject successfully merged with human genetic material. Physical strength, unmatched. Cognitive evolution, unstable. Subject designated, Rayner prototype." Jack froze. "What did you just say?" The Queen's hands shook. "This can't be." She opened another log. "Earth contact achieved. Data inserted into military DNA program. Result, human soldier enhanced through unknown code." Jack took a step back, his heart pounding. "You're saying they made me?" The Queen looked at him, guilt written across her face. "Not made, but changed. You were part of their experiment. You were never meant to know." Silence filled the room. Jack felt his chest tighten, his mind burning with 1,000 memories. The war, the missions, the things he could never explain. The way he survived when everyone else died. He had always wondered why. Now he knew. He turned to her, voice low, controlled but full of rage. So I'm one of your weapons. A test subject. A mistake, the Queen shook her head quickly. No, you were different. The others, they lost control. You didn't, you became human. Human? He said bitterly. They called me a monster. And now you tell me I actually am one. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. You don't understand, Jack. I wasn't part of this. I was trying to stop it. My people, my council, wanted to erase the project to erase you. That's why they hunted me too. Jack's eyes narrowed. You're saying we're both wanted? Yes, she said softly. Because you're proof they lied to everyone. They built monsters and called them enemies. Before he could answer, the floor shook violently. The lights turned red. A voice echoed through the room, cold, mechanical, ancient. Containment breach detected. Biological signature active. Protocol release. Metal doors slammed open across the corridor. From the darkness, a low growl echoed. Jack grabbed his weapon, scanning the tunnel. What now? The Queen whispered, terrified. They released the prototype. A massive shape moved in the shadows, twice Jack's height, covered in dark metal plates and pulsing veins of light. Its eyes glowed the same color as his, human blue. Jack froze. It looked almost like him, but twisted, angrier, hollow. The creature roared, shaking the walls. The Queen shouted, It's one of the others, the ones that failed. Jack stepped forward, jaw clenched. Failed, huh? We'll see. He charged before the creature could strike. Their clash echoed like thunder, metal against flesh, rage against rage. The Queen watched in horror as the two monsters of Earth fought in the dark, each blow lighting up the room in flashes of blue fire. The walls cracked, sparks flew. The creature swung, sending Jack crashing into the console. He wiped blood from his mouth, smiling. You hit harder than most people I've buried. With a roar, he lunged forward, driving his blade into the creature's chest. It screamed in a sound that wasn't human, wasn't machine, and fell silent. Smoke filled the room. Jack stood over it, breathing hard. His arm trembled. The Queen looked at him, awe and fear mixed in her eyes. You shouldn't have survived that, she whispered. Jack looked at the body, then at her. Maybe the real experiment isn't over. As alarms blared and the ground trembled again, the Queen pressed a hidden switch on the wall. A secret door opened, revealing a tunnel leading deeper underground. She looked at Jack and said, There's something you need to see. The truth about why the Alliance fears you. Jack sighed, tightening his grip on the weapon. Lead the way, Your Majesty. But if another secret pops out of the dark, I'm shooting it first. The Queen gave a small, broken smile. Fair enough. They stepped into the tunnel as the lights flickered out behind them, the creature's body still twitching, blue eyes slowly fading to black. The tunnel stretched endlessly into darkness. Every step echoed like a drumbeat. Behind them, the facility burned, fire chasing them like a living thing. Jack Rayner held the torch high, light trembling across the metal walls. Beside him, the Queen of Xylaris moved with quiet grace, though her eyes showed fear she refused to admit. Neither spoke for a long time. The silence between them was heavier than the air itself. Finally, Jack broke it. Tell me the rest, he said coldly. You said the Alliance fears me. Why? The Queen hesitated. Because you're not just a weapon, Jack. You're the only one that worked. Jack frowned. Worked? The Alliance created many prototypes. Soldiers from different races. All failed. Their minds broke. They became monsters that destroyed everything. And me? She looked at him. You didn't break. You became something they couldn't control, something they couldn't understand. Jack's jaw tightened. So instead of thanking me, they locked me up. Her voice was soft. Because they fear what they can't control. Jack laughed bitterly. Story of my life. The tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber, part hangar, part graveyard. Broken ships and shattered drones lay scattered everywhere. Blue fire burned in pools of melted metal. The ground shook with distant rumbling. The Queen stopped suddenly. Her eyes widened. Do you hear that? Jack listened. At first only the wind. Then a hum, a low, powerful hum that grew louder every second. He looked up. The ceiling opened like a wound, and through the smoke, Alliance dropships descended. They found us, Jack muttered. How? The Queen gasped. Jack pointed to a blinking light on her armor. Tracker. They didn't just want me. They wanted you too. Her face went pale. No, that's impossible. Jack ripped the tracker off and crushed it under his boot. Too late, he said. They're already here. The first dropship landed hard, sending dust into the air. Dozens of armored soldiers marched out, shining armor, plasma rifles ready, their faces hidden behind mirrored helmets. A booming voice echoed from the sky. This is Commander Luthen of the Galactic Alliance. By order of the High Council, surrender the human and the traitor queen. Jack smiled grimly. They really know how to say please. He turned to the queen. Stay behind me. Jack, there are too many. I've fought worse odds. He looked back at her with a half smile. Monsters don't count numbers. Then he charged. The first blast hit the ground where he had been standing a moment earlier. Jack moved like lightning, dodging, rolling, firing a stolen plasma pistol. He was faster than human reflex, stronger than the armor around him. He smashed one soldier's helmet with a punch that cracked steel. Another fell to his knee, screaming as Jack ripped his weapon away and fired back at the incoming troops. The queen joined the fight, her wrist blade glowing white, cutting through armor with precise strikes. Side by side, they moved like two storms colliding, human rage and alien grace in perfect rhythm. The soldiers shouted in panic. He's not human. Fall back, he's unstoppable. Jack's voice roared above the chaos. You wanted the monster? Here I am. Explosions tore through the hangar. Metal screamed. Dust filled the air. Everywhere Jack moved, destruction followed. Controlled, calculated, terrifying. But victory never lasts long. As the last soldiers fell, a deep rumble shook the ground. The largest dropship landed, its door opening with a hiss. From it stepped a figure in black armor, taller than Jack, glowing with red energy. His voice was cold and metallic. Human prototype Raynor. Termination authorized. Jack's eyes narrowed. You're not Alliance. What are you? The figure stepped forward. I am Unit 0, the first of your kind. The one who failed. Jack's heart froze. He had thought the other prototypes were dead. But one lived, and it had become a machine. 0 raised his arm, forming a blade from pure plasma. They built us to serve. You broke the code. I will fix the mistake. Jack dropped his weapon. You'll have to try. The fight was chaos. Every punch shook the walls. Every strike sent shockwaves through the ground. Jack fought with raw strength, 0 with mechanical precision. The queen watched helplessly as the two monsters clashed, sparks and blood mixing in the air. Jack was powerful, but 0 was faster, smarter, colder. Jack, the queen shouted. He's draining your energy. His armor is feeding on your biocode. Jack gritted his teeth. Yeah, I noticed. He staggered, bleeding from his arm, but his eyes were full of fire. He looked at the queen, and something in his expression changed. Get to the ship, he shouted. Now! What about you? I'll hold him off. No, you'll die! He smiled faintly. I already did. A long time ago. Jack ran toward 0, grabbing a fallen explosive pack. He pulled the pin and tackled the machine soldier into the pit below. The explosion was deafening. Fire consumed the chamber. The queen screamed his name and her voice lost in the thunder. When the smoke cleared, the ground was a crater. The dropships were gone. The facility had collapsed and Jack Raynor was nowhere to be seen. The queen fell to her knees, tears mixing with ash. For a moment there was nothing but silence, until a faint voice came through the static of her broken communicator. Still here, Your Majesty. Told you monsters don't die easy. She smiled through her tears. Then let's show the galaxy what monsters can really do. The silence after the explosion was endless. Dust floated in the red air like ghosts. The moon itself seemed to hold its breath. The Queen of Xylaris stood at the edge of the crater, smoke rising, fire glowing below. Her heart pounded. She could still hear his last words in the communicator. Monsters don't die easy. But now there was nothing. Only ruins, she whispered. Jack, please. No answer. For the first time, the queen, ruler of 1,000 worlds, felt truly alone. Then the ground trembled. A faint hum rose from deep below, growing louder, faster, like the beat of a giant heart. The queen turned. From the smoke, a hand appeared, covered in black ash and glowing blue veins. Jack Raynor pulled himself out of the crater, every muscle burning, every breath heavy. He was alive, but not the same. The blast had changed him. The experimental code in his blood had fully awakened. His eyes glowed brighter than before, electric blue, almost inhuman. His skin shimmered faintly with metallic veins beneath, and when he clenched his fists, the ground itself seemed to respond. The Queen gasped. "Jack, what happened to you?" He looked at her, calm, focused, dangerous. "They finished what they started," he said quietly. "The experiment." "It's awake." They didn't have time to talk. Above them, the clouds split open. 3 massive Alliance battleships entered orbit, their engines roaring like thunder. Bright blue light poured from their cannons, targeting the moon's surface. The Queen's communicator came to life with static. "This is the Galactic Council. Queen Lyra of Zelaris, you are charged with treason. Human prototype Raynor is to be terminated immediately." Jack smirked. "They really don't give up." The Queen clenched her fists. "If those ships fire, this whole moon will turn to dust." Jack looked at the burning sky, his new blue eyes reflecting the light. "Then we stop them before they can pull the trigger." They ran through the ruins toward the old hangar bay, the same one Jack had fought in. Inside lay an ancient starfighter, half buried under rubble. It was small, broken, but the engines still glowed faintly. The Queen moved to the controls. "I can fix it. But I need time." Jack picked up a rifle from the ground. "I'll buy you all you need." He walked to the entrance where the wind howled through shattered walls. His senses were sharper now. He could feel every vibration, hear every whisper, see every heartbeat. The new part of him wasn't just stronger. It was aware. He heard them coming before they appeared, the Alliance strike drones descending like a storm of metal wings. "Showtime," Jack muttered. The first wave hit fast, a swarm of drones firing plasma rounds. Jack moved like lightning, dodging, striking, shooting. He didn't fight like a human anymore. His body flowed like something born for war. He ripped a drone in half with his bare hands, using its core as a grenade. The explosion lit up the sky, throwing dust and fire across the ruins. More came. Hundreds. The Queen shouted from the ship, "Jack! I can't launch yet." "Then keep working," he yelled, slamming his weapon into the ground. A pulse of blue energy burst out from him, blasting the drones back. The Queen stared in awe. "What did you just do?" Jack looked at his glowing hands. "I'm still figuring that out." Minutes felt like hours. The drones just kept coming. Jack's wounds healed as fast as they appeared, but he was tiring. Every burst of power drained something inside him, something human. Finally, the ship roared to life. The Queen shouted, "It's ready." Jack turned toward her, breathing hard. "Go, I'll hold them off." "No," she screamed. "You're coming with me." He hesitated. For the first time, the unbreakable soldier looked unsure. Then, as another blast hit the ground, she ran to him, grabbed his arm, and pulled him toward the ship. "Enough running alone," she said. "If we die together." Jack gave her a tired grin. Can't argue with royalty. They jumped into the ship just as the hangar collapsed behind them. The starfighter blasted off, breaking through the storm clouds. The sky above was filled with fire, 3 massive ships charging their cannons, aiming straight at them. The Queen shouted, "We can't outrun them." Jack's eyes glowed brighter. "Then we don't run." He stood behind her seat, touching the ship's control panel. The energy from his hands spread into the system. The engines surged, weapons overloaded. "Jack, what are you doing?" "Becoming what they fear," he said. The ship's weapons charged beyond normal limits. Blue fire surrounded the hull, turning the small fighter into a burning comet. Jack's voice was calm but fierce. "Aim for the lead ship." The Queen hesitated and then nodded. "For Earth." She pulled the trigger. The ship roared forward, faster than light, faster than sound, a streak of blue energy piercing the sky. The explosion was so bright it blinded the stars for a moment. The lead Alliance ship split in 2, its engines erupting in fire. The other 2 ships broke formation, panicking. The starfighter spun out of control, smoke trailing behind it. Inside, alarms blared. "Jack!" The Queen shouted. "We're going to crash!" Jack grinned through the chaos. "Then let's make it loud." The ship vanished into the clouds, flames chasing it down. High above, the surviving Alliance ship sent a signal to the Council. "Human prototype Raynor. Status unknown. But if he's still alive, the galaxy is in danger." And deep below the storm, inside the falling wreck, Jack opened his eyes, blue fire glowing in the dark. "Danger?" he whispered. "No, I'm the warning." The wrecked starfighter lay half buried in the ashes of a dying moon. Lightning tore through the dark sky, painting the ground in flashes of blue and red. Smoke drifted from broken metal, whispering through the silence. Inside the wreck, Jack Rayner opened his eyes. Everything hurt. His skin burned with light. His veins pulsed like molten fire. But he was alive. Again. The last thing he remembered was the explosion. The light. The roar. The end. Now there was only stillness. He tried to move, but his body was different. Stronger. Heavier. The transformation wasn't just inside him anymore. It was him. Every breath hummed with power. Every heartbeat sounded like thunder. He looked around. The Queen's seat was empty. The cockpit glass shattered outward. A trail of footprints led into the storm. Jack clenched his jaw. She's alive. Outside, the Queen of Xylera stumbled across the wasteland. Her armor was broken, her voice weak. But she carried something, a small metal cube, glowing faintly. It was the Alliance's control key, the only thing that could call off the war fleet now preparing to strike Earth. But her communicator buzzed, and a cold voice spoke through it. Queen Lyra, surrender the human's body and the key. Your mercy ends here. The voice belonged to the Counselor Prime, the very leader who had betrayed her. Lyra pressed the communicator close. Jack Rayner lives, she said, her tone full of quiet fire. And that means your empire will burn. Then the ground shook again. A shadow fell over her, massive, metallic, and alive. Unit 0 had survived. Its armor was cracked, glowing with red light from the battle. Its voice echoed like thunder. Rayner was weak. You will lead me to him. The Queen raised her weapon, knowing she couldn't win. I'd rather die. 0 raised its plasma blade. Then die. The strike came fast, but another blade stopped it mid-air. Sparks exploded between steel and energy. The Queen turned, and her eyes widened. Jack stood there, covered in ash, his eyes burning blue. Alive. Changed. Unbreakable. 0 stepped back. Impossible. Jack smirked. You tried to kill me once. Let's finish it right this time. The two giants clashed again. Light against darkness, human against machine. Every strike shook the ground. Every blow cracked the air. 0 swung with brutal speed, but Jack moved faster, his body glowing brighter with every hit. The storm itself seemed to follow their fight, thunder rolling in rhythm with their rage. You're not human. 0 roared. Jack's voice was calm, steady. Maybe not, but I still fight for them. He slammed his fist into 0's chest, cracking the armor open. The red light flickered. 0 snarled. You can't destroy what you are. Jack looked him straight in the eye. I'm not what they made me. I'm what I chose to be. He grabbed the creature's energy core and crushed it in his hand. The explosion threw both of them apart, fire and dust swallowing the battlefield. When the smoke cleared, only Jack stood. The Queen ran to him, breathing hard. Jack, he stopped her gently. There's no time. The fleet's in orbit. Above them, through the thick clouds, 3 massive warships glowed, preparing their final strike. Earth was their target. The Queen held up the glowing cube. This can override their systems, but it needs a direct signal. I must get close to the command ship. Jack shook his head. You won't make it. They'll shoot you down before you reach orbit. She looked up at him with quiet determination. Then who will? Jack smiled faintly. I already told you. Monsters don't die easy. Minutes later, the broken starfighter roared to life once more, patched together by Jack's energy. The Queen stood beside him in the cockpit. Jack, she whispered, if this doesn't work, it'll work, he said. It has to. The engines flared, blue light cutting through the storm as they lifted off. The fleet loomed above, dark, massive, ready to erase everything below. Jack flew straight toward the center ship. Plasma blasts followed, lighting up the sky. He dodged, weaving between fire and death. The Queen activated the control key. Almost in range. A blast hit the wing. The ship spun violently. Jack gritted his teeth. Hold on. They broke through the clouds, face to face with the flagship. The Queen shouted, now. Jack released the controls, turned toward her, and smiled. Take it home. He opened the cockpit door and stepped into the storm. Jack. She screamed, no! But he was already gone, diving straight into the heart of the enemy ship. The flagship's scanners went wild. Energy readings spiked beyond measure. Inside the control room, the alien commander shouted, "Contain him! He's merging with the core." Jack Rayner's body glowed brighter and brighter, pure energy flowing from his veins into the ship's reactor. He heard the Queen's voice faintly in his ear. "Jack, please. Come back." He smiled through the pain. "Can't, gotta finish the job." He looked out through the glass one last time and at the stars at the world below. Then he whispered, "Tell them humans weren't the monsters." And he exploded. The blast was brighter than the sun. The entire fleet vanished in a single flash of blue light, silent, clean, beautiful. Days later, the Queen of Xylaris stood before the Galactic Council. Her armor was black, her eyes full of sorrow. She placed the control key on the floor. "This," she said, "was the weapon you built to destroy life. Instead, it became the man who saved it." She paused, her voice breaking slightly. His name was Jack Rayner, the monster of Earth, and he died proving that humanity deserves a place among the stars. The chamber was silent. Then, one by one, the leaders stood. A new treaty was signed. The Earth was no longer forbidden. It was honored. Years later, on Xylaris Prime, a statue stood in the royal garden. Tall, strong, carved from crystal and steel. It showed a man looking toward the stars, one hand open as if still reaching. At its base, words were engraved in both human and alien language. Humanity is not the monster. It's the reason monsters can become heroes. But sometimes, on quiet nights, the stars above the statue flicker blue, like a heartbeat. And a faint voice whispers through the static of the Queen's old communicator. "This is Jack Rayner, still breathing,